So let me go ahead and officially start today's class. It's Saturday, August 1st. Can you believe it? August 1st, 2020. And I'm going to go ahead and mute my phone. You go ahead and, well, it won't matter. I've muted everybody, but you might want to mute your phone just not to be disturbed. And our theme today is an introduction to understanding movement patterns. We all have many movement patterns that our brain has organized for us and that we operate from. The brain organizes us from head to toe, and the brain does this organizing of us by organizing us into specific movement patterns based on a number of things. For example, our joint structure, our physiology, including our neuro or brain physiology, how the nervous system organizes us, and by the laws of physics. In somatic movement education, we differentiate subpatterns and then integrate these subpatterns into full body movement patterns. Somatic movement is an educational process. We move slowly, comfortably, and with awareness or focus so our brain can improve our sub and full movement patterns to release pain and excess muscular contraction and tension for better flexibility, coordination, and strength building. Remember to back away from pain, do less, go slower, and please follow any medical directives if you've had joint replacements or a pacemaker or a stent. Please follow those directives. Okay, so we're going to focus on a couple of specific movement patterns that are common to us. So let's go ahead and lie down on the floor, allow yourself to become comfortable. Your legs can be straight or bent. And your arms are comfortable and you're just coming into yourself. And for today's body scan, I'm going to call your awareness into three largish or major body areas. We're going to, in a moment, I will describe, we're going to look at the upper body, the somatic center, and the lower body. We're going to start with the middle of our body, the somatic center. And the somatic center goes all the way around us and through us. And it's defined by the bottom of our rib cage. It's up to you if you want to use your fingers at the bottom of your rib cage, starting right at your midline in the front and following the bottom of the ribs all the way around. You don't have to necessarily go all the way around, but your ribs go from front to back, back to front. That's the upper border. And then the lower border are our hip or pelvic bones. We follow, if you can put your hands on your hip or pelvic bones at your waist, like on your side. And if you follow the pelvic bones, or what's called the iliac crest, they're your ilium bones, towards the front, you'll kind of come to a pointed area. That's approximately where your hip is, but your hip is deeper. And then you're actually in bone, but it's covered by a muscular tissue, but there's an inguinal ligament, and it goes down to your pubic bone in the front. So the very front of the somatic center is at its lowest point at the pubic bone. And then you come up around the pelvic bones or the hip bones, the ilium bones, all the way around, following your waist all the way into the back. And your waistline, the top of your ilium bones, especially in the back and on the sides, also marks your waistline. And that's more or less the bottom border of your somatic center. And the somatic center is very important because any way we move our upper body or any way we move our lower body has to be coordinated by and through the somatic center. And then let's just look at our upper body. the upper body would be the head and the neck. It would be your rib cage, and I'm going to be mentioning rib cage quite a lot today because it's sort of a forgotten, hidden area of the body, which is actually crucial to the way we organize ourselves. And so then the front of the rib cage would be the chest coming out into the shoulders. Out from the shoulders are our arms, upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, hands, and fingers. The back of the rib cage would be kind of the upper and mid back area. And the upper body basically kind of bleeds into the somatic center. And then we have the lower body. We'll start the lower body at the pelvis. So from the bottom of the somatic center, we have the pelvis. It includes your buttocks, your right and left buttocks. It includes your hips, your right and left hips. It includes the very bottom of the spine, your sacrum and your tailbone. And it comes down into the legs. So we have the thighs, the knees, the forelegs, the ankles, the feet, and the toes. So the movement of the lower body kind of bleeds up into the somatic center, and the somatic center needs to negotiate and coordinate and mediate upper body and lower body. And because the brain organizes us head to toe 24/7, the somatic center is always participating in our movement patterns. Of course, I'm kind of following the bony structure, but if you go deep into the body, you have all the organs. So in the up in the rib cage, you have the heart and the lungs. And as you start coming downward a little bit, you've got stomach and spleen and liver. As you come into the middle of the body, you have more of the intestines. As you come more into the pelvic region and lower body, you have the bladder, you have the rectum, you have the sex organs, you have the pelvic floor. And so we have a lot of organs, and the way the health of the organs also makes a difference in how the brain is able to organize us. I'm going to stick with, sometimes I mention organs, but I'm going to stick with the bony structure and the fascial muscular structure in the way I'm organizing our movement class today. So let's begin by bending our knees. Well, actually, you can have your legs bent or straight because we're going to start up at the head and neck. And as we start at the head and neck to do movements, I want to, we're going to go through 3 basic movement patterns, each with 2 directions. And this comes out of the 3 dimensions of space. And we're going to start in the head and neck because I think they're pretty easy to understand when we come this way. So if you gently start by gently tipping your head back with your chin coming toward the ceiling, not anything extreme, and then gently roll down so your chin is coming more downward towards your throat or chest. That backward and forward motion of the head and neck, and just do it slowly and gently. And notice where you have tension or if it's easy. We are working in, when you tip your head back, that's called extension. And when you tip your head forward, your chin coming towards your chest, that's flexion. And you're right on your midline. If you're organized so that you can balance right in the middle of your head to move, you are on the cardinal line on the sagittal plane. And that's one of our dimensions of space. And every dimension of space gives us 2 ranges of motion. So on our midline, going backward and forward, we have extension and flexion. And this is going to be true throughout every joint in the body. Let's come down and come down through our midline in the front, the center of our body in the front, and the center of our body in the back. And let's come, and we'll follow those lines down in just a moment. Let's stay with the head and neck. Bring your right ear gently towards your right shoulder. You're not rolling your head. You're not turning. You're side bending right ear to right shoulder gently and coming back to center. And then you're going to side bend left ear to left shoulder. You're side bending left. So those are two more ranges of motion. Side bending is also lateral flexion, right and left. And if you're moving on the lateral cardinal lines, going down the sides of your head and neck, you are moving in what's called the frontal or coronal plane. And those are two more ranges of motion, right and left side bending. And then we can roll our head or rotate our head. We can turn our head and neck to the right and slowly come back to center. And we can turn our head to the left and slowly come back to center. So those are two more ranges of motion. Rolling to the right is a rotation, turning, twisting. In this case, rolling is a rotation right and rotation left. That is happening on what's called the transverse or horizontal plane, and that gives us two more ranges of motion. And as you slowly and gently move, you are comparing what is it like to turn your head to the right, coming back to neutral in the center. What is it like to turn your head to the left, coming back to neutral or center? And you start to compare these different ranges of motion, and you start to accumulate a kind of record in your mind and in your body of where you're holding more tension and where it's easier to move. And so all movement through joints, because we live in a world of 3 dimensions of space, even though we have 1 dimension of time, all our movements take place over time. In terms of spatial relationships on our Earth, we have 3 dimensions. And we just went through in our head and neck the 3 dimensions of space following the cardinal lines. And let me just review what they were. So we can review the sagittal plane gives you backward in the neck extension, head and neck, forward in the head and neck flexion. Those are 2 ranges of motion. We had right ear to shoulder, side bending right or lateral flexion right, side bending left or lateral flexion left. And again, if you go slowly so that you can feel and compare what is happening in side bending right and side bending left, that's 2 more ranges of motion. And then we can rotate our head to the right. We can rotate or turn our head to the left. Rotation, right and left, give us 2 more ranges of motion, 6 ranges of motion, 3 planes of dimension, 3 cardinal lines of movement within our body and within every joint of our body. There are only 6 ranges of motion. Everything else is a combination of ranges of motion. So we can do very sophisticated motions, for example, with our head and neck. Let me give you an example of a combination that actually uses 3 different ranges of motion. We can rotate, do this gently, we can rotate our head to the right. Keeping your head rotated to the right, bring your right ear towards your right shoulder. So we're adding right lateral flexion or right side bending. And now tip your head back and we're adding extension. And then slowly come back to center. You can describe any movement at any joint in the human body and into all creatures that live on our earth by the three dimensions of space, each with two ranges of motion through every single joint. Now, some of the movements we give in our joints are special names, but they still relate to one of the 6 ranges of motion. That is all there is. Let's come down and bend our knees. Let's bend our knees and let's go to our somatic center. And let's find the 3 dimensions of space and the 6 ranges of motion within our somatic center. We're going to start with our arch and flatten, which is one of our usual movements that we do, often to start a class. So you're at your somatic center. You're going to bring your awareness to your lower back and to your belly in the front in the somatic center. And as you inhale, you're gently going to arch your lower back, leaving your buttocks on the floor, raising your belt line or waistline a little bit away from the floor. And then as you exhale, you release your back, you contract your belly, and you're bringing your pubic bone and your rib cage a little closer together. You're beginning the beginning stages of a spinal flexion, and your back is flattening a little bit more. So as you inhale and arch, you are extending, you're on the midline of the body, so you're in the sagittal plane, and you are arching, you are extending. If you are flattening, contracting your belly, shortening your front, you're starting to go into a flexion. So extension and flexion are the 2 ranges of motion in the sagittal plane, and that gives us forward and backward movement. And you don't want to strain, back off. If something is uncomfortable, you just back off. Okay, let's stay with our somatic center, but to the sides of our body. So the lateral, we have a right lateral side and a left lateral side, and we're going to go into what we call hip hiking or side bending. We'll start with the right. It's usually more comfortable for people to keep their knees bent, but your legs can be bent or straight. I'm going to suggest right now they're bent. And you're going to hike your right hip towards your right armpit. In this case, you're just going to let your head drift to the right. If you were doing a pure side bending, you'd actually bring your right ear towards your right shoulder as well. But it's easier because of our joint structure just to roll the head to the right, but you have a choice there. You're shortening the right side, you're squeezing the right ribs a little bit. The left side is lengthening between the armpit, the hip, and the ribs. And then you're slowly coming back to center. And we're going to go to the other side. We're going to do left side bending, left hip hiking. You're going to hike your left hip, your buttocks stay flat on the floor. Your left hip comes up, your left armpit comes down, your ribs gently squeeze on the left. You're going to let your head roll, or you're going to side bend your left ear towards your left shoulder to do a pure side bend, more of a pure side bending. Your left side is shortening, your right side is lengthening between the armpit and the hip, and the ribs are opening up a little on the right. And you're slowly going to come back to center. So gently on your own, continue hip hike, side bend to the right, right armpit and right hip coming closer together. And the second range of motion is left hip hiking, side bending, allowing your left armpit and left hip to come closer together. Let your head and neck be free and easy. Each time you come back to neutral, we are using our pandicular format for the most part, meaning we're moving into a pattern so those muscles contract to make that pattern. And then we're slowly coming out of that pattern to neutral, to a little bit of a rest. And then we're, in this case, going into the opposite side bending. Now we're contracting muscles on that side. and slowly releasing out of them. So the pendicular process is that two-part process of contract and slow release of a set of muscles, a group of muscles. So right and left side bending, or right and left hip hiking, whichever you like to call it, that is happening on the coronal or frontal plane. That's another dimension of space, and it gives us the two ranges of motion of right and left lateral flexion. And so now we are going to rotation. Now this is interesting. In the human body, we have our upper and lower body can work together, or our upper and lower body can operate to opposite directions. So we're going to do a little bit of both, and they're both forms of rotation in the human being. We're going to do this in a special way. Go ahead and cross your arms over your chest so that your elbows are bent, your forearm, your upper arms are resting against your chest, your fingers are kind of pointing in a way towards your shoulders. You want your arms to be comfortable. And we're doing this so that you can really pay attention to your rib cage. Go ahead and, keeping this crossed arm position, turn your face to the right and rotate or turn your rib cage to the right. And then slowly back to center. It doesn't have to be a big movement. The reason I'm having you cross your arms is to take your arms and your shoulders more or less out of the mix so that you go into the core of the body, the trunk of the body. The rib cage is a forgotten area of the body for so many of us. But many people who when they look in the mirror, they have a little bit of a tilt or side turning to the right. It's often coming from the rib cage, and we neglect the rib cage. So we're going to really include the rib cage in this turning. You're turning your face to the right, your rib cage to the right. Maybe you feel it go into your somatic center already. And slowly come back to center. And then go ahead and turn your face to the left. Turn your rib cage to the left. You may feel it go through your somatic center and back to center. And slowly and gently turn head and rib cage, including somatic center, to the right, pausing at neutral, and to the left, and notice which way is easier. What is your direction of ease? And what is your direction that is less easy? Maybe it's stiffer. Maybe it's harder to organize in your mind. We all develop biases. We all develop ways that we habituate certain patterns of contracted muscles. Those are our directions of ease. It's easier to go to whichever side is easier because those muscles are already contracted that go in that direction. So when we want to start to work out those contractions in our work, in the somatic movement work, we go into our direction of ease first, so that our brain, and we do it consciously and with awareness, so our brain can feel the contraction of those muscles. And then we slowly come out of that. And we usually repeat that pattern to the side of ease a number of times, hopefully then releasing some of those patterns. So then when we go into our opposite direction that was more difficult, you're looking for, is it any easier? Is it easier? And if it is easier, and hopefully it is, it's because you've released some of the chronic muscular contraction that biased you to turn in whatever your direction of ease was. And let's come back to center. Now, let your arms relax. You can bring them back down to your sides. And let's do rotation in our lower body with our knees, starting with our knees bent. And just very, very gently take both of your knees comfortably to the right. Your feet stay on the floor, but your feet will roll. And then you're going to come back to center. And you want to comfortably bring both knees to your left and come back to center. And go back and forth a few times. You are doing lower body rotation to the right and to the left. And notice if your pelvis is coming along. Notice if as you bring your knees in whatever direction you're going, for example, if you're bringing your knees to the right, notice that your pelvis is turning and your right buttock or your right hemipelvis, the right half of your pelvis, is going into the floor and the left side is lightening or lifting. If you're bringing your knees to the left and bringing your pelvis along, your left buttock will go more into the floor and the right side of your pelvis will lighten or lift. And so right now we are including, hopefully, our legs, our feet, and our pelvis. So you're rotating, you're focusing more on lower body. Feel how the rotation goes up through your somatic center. Some of you may be even feeling it all the way up into your upper body, into your upper body. Let your feet roll on the floor. That's going to be a part of a movement we're going to look at shortly. And now come back to center. Let's combine. So here are two last ranges of motion. It's the cardinal line would be the transverse plane or the horizontal plane, and that's what turns you into rotation. Go ahead and cross your arms again over your chest so that you can really feel the participation of the rib cage. I'm going to stagger this a little so it's a little easy. Our lower body is heavier than our upper body. We're going to start in the upper body. Turn your face and your rib cage to the right, and also turn your knees to the right, just comfortably, and come back to center. You are doing what's called ipsilateral rotation to the right. It's your whole body is rotating to the right. Let's go ahead and do that again. Turn your upper body, your face, your rib cage, your somatic center to the right, then bring your knees to the right. Your whole body is turning to the right. Your feet are rolling, so the bottoms of your feet are facing the left, and come back to center. And let's do ipsilateral or same side rotation to the left. I like to start in the upper body since it's lighter. And so turn your face and rib cage to the left, your somatic center to the left, your knees to the left, and now you're rotating your whole body to the left. Your feet are rolling, the bottoms of your feet are to the right, and come back to center. And because of time, I want to continue on. Now we can turn our upper and lower body in opposite directions. So this is more the walking rotation. So take your upper body, your head and your neck and your somatic center, will figure it out. Take your head and rib cage to the left and your knees to the right. Your somatic center has to negotiate the upper and lower body going in opposite directions and come back to center. That's why your somatic center is so important, to be flexible so that it can figure out how to do these negotiations. Now, let's go the other way in contralateral rotation. Bring your face and rib cage to the right. Bring your knees to the left. Your pelvis is probably coming along. And notice your upper and lower body are going in opposite or contralateral or cross-lateral directions, and your somatic center is in the middle, figuring out how to allow your upper and lower body to do both, and come back to center. And relax your arms down. And you can also relax your legs if you want, or you can leave them bent. We're going to work with an upper body pattern for a moment. This time we're going to let the arms just be comfortable on the floor, and we're going to allow our arms to be part of the movement that we do. A very common pattern we do in everyday life is the following. Turn your face to the right. Let your right shoulder go backward. Your right shoulder blade is gently coming closer to your spine. Your left shoulder is rounding forward. Your left shoulder blade is coming away from your spine. Your left shoulder is aiming diagonally across your front towards your right hip. And then slowly come back to center. We have to do this move a lot in our life. It's a part of the turning move. Let's do that. And some of you know your anatomy and care about that, and others don't. It doesn't matter. You don't have to know the anatomy, but I'm just one time going to take you through some of the anatomy involved in this, and just follow along with the movement if the anatomy is not important to you. When you turn your head and neck to the right, you're doing a combination of the right splenius muscles and the left sternocleidomastoid muscles in the neck to turn your face to the right. When you bring your right shoulder backward and your left shoulder forward, don't forget that rib cage. You are turning your rib cage to the right. You're using lots of shoulder blade muscles in the back to bring your right shoulder blade, like your rhomboids, closer to your spine. To bring your left shoulder blade away from your spine, you're using serratus anterior. I'm just giving some muscles. You're also, as you bring your left shoulder, as you round it forward, you're using pectoral muscles. And as you aim your right shoulder towards your left shoulder, as you aim your left shoulder towards your right hip, you're using your left external oblique and your right internal oblique. And then come back to center, and you're using a lot of intercostal muscles in the ribs themselves, which follow the external and internal obliques. They're just a continuation of those muscles, but between the ribs. When we have a pattern that we are stuck in, we want to start looking at the different components so that we can create more flexibility. I just want to emphasize, when we look in the mirror, if we notice, oh, gee, our head is turned a little bit to the right. Oh, gee, our right shoulder is a little bit backward and our left shoulder is a little bit forward. We go ahead and we work our neck and we work our shoulders, and that's great. But we forget our rib cage, which is the underlying and often more foundational movement, place of deep movement patterning we also have to work with. Let's do this pattern to the left. Turn your head and neck to the left. Allow your left shoulder to go backward. Notice that the inclination of your left arm is to externally rotate at least a little bit. And your left shoulder blade comes closer to your spine. Your right shoulder blade comes away from your spine as your right shoulder rounds forward. Aim your right shoulder across your front to your left hip. Notice your rib cage is turning left, and come back to center. We're going to do that again. Turn your face, head and neck to the left. Turn your rib cage to the left. Your left shoulder backward. Your right shoulder forward. Aim your right shoulder towards your left hip. And come back to center. Notice which is easier for you to do and organize. Is it easier for you to turn your head and neck right, bring your right shoulder back and your left shoulder forward, aim towards your right hip? Or is it easier for you to turn your head and neck to the left, your left shoulder back, your rib cage to the left, your right shoulder forward, aim towards your left hip? Where is your bias? Where is your direction of ease? You find your direction of ease, and if you had time right now, which we're going to move on, you would do the pattern that is easier for you to do. You would do it slowly and accumulate the different parts of that pattern so that your brain can really focus on those muscles that are contracted, so that as you move slowly back to your neutral, your brain can help to release those muscles. Okay, let's go to the lower body now. Let your upper body relax. And let's come into some common lower body patterns. We actually already with our knees bent earlier, we already rotated our legs and pelvis to the right and left. So I'm going to add a different lower body pattern. Let your right leg be long. Your left leg can be long, or your left leg can be bent. We're going to work with our straight right leg. If it's more comfortable for your lower back to bend your left leg, then go ahead and do it. But we're going to focus on the right leg. Okay. When we are standing and walking, our legs are, our knees do bend as part of the walking cycle, but we are mostly in the combination of straight leg to a little bit of bent leg to straight leg. So we're going to work with that straight right leg. So go ahead and actually, let's go to the feet first. Let's work a little with the feet. Go down to your feet and actually lengthen both legs. Let's warm up the feet a little bit with a flexion extension pattern before we go into a rotational pattern. We're going to do an arch and flatten with our legs straight. And we're going to include our feet. And this may be small. And if it's not comfortable for you, just just a micro movement. You're going to inhale and arch and point your feet and toes. And then exhale, relax your back, flatten your back a little bit by contracting your belly, and gently pull your feet and toes towards your kneecap. So you are inhaling and arching and pointing your feet and toes. You're doing an extension pattern, at least in your lower body and through your somatic center. And then as you exhale, let go of the back, contract your belly, gently pull your feet and toes towards your kneecap. You're doing a flexion pattern in the lower body with your legs relatively straight. And let that relax. I like to do a little flexion extension included in the feet before we go on to the pattern we're going to do now. So now we're going to work with the right long leg, and your left leg can be long or bent. That's up to you. You're going to, with your right long leg, you're going to take your ankle area, your foot and ankle, and gently, it's a small movement, you're going to turn the bottom of your foot inward. It's called inversion. And you're going to slowly let that release. As you gently repeat this, you're taking the bottom of your foot and turning it inward. Notice that your leg and knee probably want to go somewhat outward. You could let them go a little bit outward. You don't have to be so stiff that you don't have any give, and slowly release. And this already is starting to give us a very common pattern between the legs and the feet. When you're biased towards turning the bottom of your feet inward, it tends to turn your leg and knee outward. It doesn't have to be your pattern. It's just the most common pattern. And slowly release. Now, take your right foot and straighten your leg again, but let it be a little bit relaxed. And this is, for many people, this is a harder pattern, but not for everybody. You're going to turn the bottom of your foot outward This is called eversion. You're going to feel the muscles on the underside of the outside ankle. And notice your leg wants to turn inward. Your leg and knee want to turn inward a little bit, and you can let them do that and slowly release. But you're leading this pattern right now through your foot, because your foot is what hits the ground and then starts to program the movement up your body. Turn the bottom of your foot outward. Notice that your leg and knee probably want to go inward. Let them go inward a little bit. It's fine. And slowly release and relax. So go ahead again, turn the bottom of your foot outward, let your knee and leg roll a little bit inward, rotate a little bit inward. This is the most common pattern for an inwardly rotated leg. You'll often find the bottom of the foot wants to go out or evert. It's not the only pattern, it's just a very common pattern. And let that relax. Let's trade legs. So you're going to now work with the left long leg. Let your right leg be straight or bent. And you're going to turn the bottom of your right foot inward. Notice your leg has an inclination for your leg and knee to turn outward. That's the most common, but not the only pattern. An outwardly rotated leg with inverted feet, or the bottom of the foot going inward, and slowly release. And let's take the bottom of our foot and slowly and gently turn it outward if you can, the bottom of the foot outward, and notice there's an inclination for the leg and knee to rotate inward. And slowly release. We're going to go back and forth slowly. I'll guide you. So left straight leg, basically starting with the left straight leg, bottom of the left foot inward. Notice your thigh and knee want to roll outward. This is the most common pattern, but not the only pattern. And then come back to your neutral. Now turn the bottom of your foot outward. Notice the inclination for your leg and knee to roll inward. This is the most commonly combined pattern for an inwardly rotated leg where your foot goes outward, but it's not the only pattern. And let that release and relax. Okay. Let's add a upper body pattern and a lower body pattern together. And so we've got some choices here, and I'm going to take you through some of them. Let's start with something a little bit easier. Go ahead and bend your knees again. And if you've developed any tension in your low back, you can always go back and do some arch and flatten, and that usually will take out any residual tension. So your knees are bent, and we're going to, in the upper body, we're going to turn our face to the right, our rib cage to the right. Our right arm is going to, right arm and shoulder roll a little bit outward, left arm and shoulder a little bit inward, and bring both knees to the right. And now we've combined upper and lower body rotation into an ipsilateral full side rotation to the right. And come back to center. For some people, this is the way they want to go. And for some people, their knees want to go in the other way. So let's do that one now. Your face and head and neck are going to the right. Your rib cage is turning to the right. Your right shoulder and arm roll outward. Your left shoulder and arm roll inward. Your left shoulder aims towards your right hip and both knees to the left. And now you have a contralateral pattern. And for some people, they go, oh, this is the one I like. And for other people, they go, nope, this is not the one I like better. And come back to center. Let's take our upper body to a left rotation. Head and neck to the left, rib cage to the left. Left arm and shoulder roll outward, right arm and shoulder roll inward. Right shoulder aim towards the left hip, across the front, both knees to the left. And we've done an ipsilateral or same side rotation, upper lower body somatic center to the left. The somatic center still has to negotiate the upper and lower body so both can go left. And come back to center. Now, again, upper body left, face to the left, rib cage left, left arm and shoulder roll outward, right arm and shoulder roll inward, right shoulder aims across the front to the left hip, knees to the right. This is a contralateral pattern. Again, you look for what's easy for you to organize, what's sort of strange or stiff or odd, and come back to center. Now we're going to combine in a little bit more challenging way. Go ahead and straighten your legs. We're going to start with a right straight leg. Your left leg can be bent or not. If your low back wants your leg to be bent for more comfort, that's fine. Okay. So your right straight leg is the leg we're going to be working, but we're going to combine it with the upper body pattern first. We're going to do a right rotation in our upper body. Head and neck to the right, rib cage to the right, right arm rolls outward, left arm rolls inward, left shoulder aims toward the right hip in the front, and your right leg rolls outward, your right foot, the bottom of your right foot turns inward into inversion, and slowly come back to center. Let's do that one again. Upper body rotates right, face to the right, head and neck right, rib cage right. Don't forget that rib cage. Right shoulder and arm outward, left shoulder and arm inward, left shoulder aims towards the right hip, right leg rolls outward, the bottom of the foot turns inward. And slowly come back to center. We're going to continue with a right rotation in the upper body, but we're going to do a left rotation in the right leg. We're going to do an internal rotation with the right leg now. But let me lead you through it. Upper body, right rotation, head and neck to the right, rib cage to the right, right arm, shoulder roll out, left arm and shoulder roll in, left shoulder towards right hip, right straight leg rolls inward, and the bottom of your foot turns outward. And slowly come back to your neutral. And we'll do that one more time. Upper body rotates right. Head and neck right, rib cage right. Let your shoulders, can you organize your shoulders? Left shoulder towards your right hip. Your right straight leg rotates inward rotation. The bottom of your foot turns outward, eversion. And slowly release and relax. And just give yourself a moment to relax. The patterns I'm taking you through are usually the most common patterns, but they are for sure not the only patterns. And so as you begin to recognize the different components of the pattern, you start to be able to assess yourself. And if you're a person that works with clients, you start to come to recognize more of the full body head to toe elements in these patternings. Okay, left leg long, right leg can be straight or bent. Upper body rotation left, head and neck to the left, rib cage left, left arm and shoulder roll outward, right arm and shoulder roll inward, right shoulder goes diagonally towards the left hip. Let your left leg roll outward, external rotation. The bottom of the foot turns inward into inversion. And slowly release and relax. Let's do that one again. Upper body in left rotation. Head and neck left, rib cage left. Can you feel the organization already happen in your arms and shoulders? Aim your right shoulder towards your left hip. Your left leg rotates outward. The bottom of your foot turns inward into inversion. And slowly release and relax. That's an ipsilateral turning to the same side. Okay, going to bring our left leg into an internal rotation this side. Let me guide you. Upper body through the somatic center. Rotates left, head and neck left, rib cage left, left arm and shoulder backward, right arm and shoulder rotates inward, right shoulder to left hip, left straight leg rolls inward, inward rotation, the bottom of the foot turns outward into eversion. This is a pronated foot leg combination, fallen arches where the inside arch has collapsed and their feet are pronated or turned in. And then slowly come back to center. We'll do that again. Upper body rotates left, face to the left, rib cage left. Can you feel the organization in the arms and shoulders already? Right shoulder towards left hip. Left straight leg internally rotates and the bottom of the foot everts, turns outward. Your medial arch is collapsing inward. This is a pronated foot and probably leg. It's not the only way your leg can be in pronation. It's the most common pattern. And slowly come back to neutral. And rest. We've gone through quite a few patterns, and we're going to let that, what I call, sozzle in the brain a little bit, and we're going to do some transitional arch and curl moves, and then we'll do a little bit of side work. So go ahead and bend your knees. And bring your hands behind your head. Your feet are going to stay on the floor. You're going to inhale and arch. Do a full spinal arch, even bringing your head back as your tailbone rolls into the floor. Your low back lifts a little bit. Exhale, relax, contract belly. Let your hands help lift your head. Bring your elbows closer to your head, and pubic bone and rib cage come closer together, and slowly come out of this. And of course, we're going to do a variation. If it's comfortable, cross your right leg over your left. If that's not comfortable, try to cross your right foot on your left knee. So you're either crossing at the thigh or crossing right foot to left knee. Did I say that wrong? Right leg over left, either at the thighs or at the knee. If that's not comfortable, keep your legs uncrossed. And in this position, the foot on the floor stays on the floor. You're going to do arch and curl. So inhale and arch, and exhale as you're ready. You'll exhale and curl, and your right leg is on top, so your right back has longer to go along the back, shorter to go in the front. And slowly come out of this. And once again, change your leg crossing so that now your left is over your right or your left foot on your right knee. But if neither are comfortable, just keep your knees bent and arch and curl. Your foot on the floor stays on the floor. And as you curl, because your left leg is on top, the front of your body, especially on the left, is a little shorter, and the left back has to lengthen a little longer. Do not strain. Back away from pain or strain. And come back down and uncross your legs. Now, let's do an arch and curl on the diagonal. We'll do one to each side, and then I'm going to do a variation. So I'll guide this. Bring your right hand behind your head. Your left arm will be down at your side. You're going to get ready on the curl. You'll be bringing your right elbow and left knee toward each other. So right hand behind the head. Inhale and arch. And as you exhale and release the back and move into a curl, you'll raise your head, right elbow, left knee come toward each other in a diagonal curl. Upper and lower body are rotating in opposite directions. Your upper body is rotating left and your lower body is rotating right. And slowly come down, at least theoretically. And slowly come down. And change your hand positions. And now get ready on the curl for your left elbow, right knee to come toward each other. You're going to inhale and arch. Exhale, release back. Move into a comfortable curl. Your head is lifting. If that's comfortable, your head can stay on the floor. If that's not, left elbow, right knee, your upper body rib cage is rotating right, your lower body is rotating left. If you're doing a true contralateral diagonal. And slowly come down and relax. And just take a moment to rest in any position that's comfortable, legs bent or long. And go ahead and turn onto one of your sides. If you have a pillow, you can put it under your head. I forgot to mention it's nice to have a pillow. You can use your bottom arm as a pillow, which is fine. A lot of people are very comfortable with their bottom arm as a pillow, but some people much prefer a pillow under their head. And you're going to bend your knees comfortably. Your knees are about as high as your hips, but if that's not comfortable, you have them come a little lower. Your ankles, your feet and ankles, your ankles are under your knees. You can almost see your toes. And we're going to do one regular lateral flexion. I will guide you. We've been doing a lot of rotational moves, and rotation and lateral flexion are hooked together. There's always a little bit of lateral flexion with rotation, and there's always rotation with lateral flexion. You can rotate more easily than you can laterally flex, but the way our spinal vertebral joints are constructed, the side bending and rotation go together to a certain extent. So we're going to do a little side bending. Bring your top, if it's comfortable, bring your top arm over the top of your head towards the ear. You don't have to go to the ear, but you're going to help lift your head with that arm. Your knees stay touching. You're going to bring your top foot up to internally rotate your top thigh, hike your hip, Raise your head so that your top armpit and top hip come toward each other. Your ribs are gently contracting on the top side, and slowly come down and relax. If it is not comfortable for you to bring your hand over your head, just let your hand drape long on your side. You can still have your armpit and hip come toward each other. So arm over the head if that's comfortable, otherwise drape your arm. But this time, lengthen your top leg downward. And now, you're breathing comfortably. You're going to raise your top leg toward the ceiling a little bit and hike your hip and lift your head and bring your armpit and hip toward each other. And slowly down. And excuse me, my dog. My dog, somebody did something. And come down, and you're going to do that again. Straighten your leg if you relaxed it, which is fine. And you're going to abduct or lift your leg and hike your hip and raise your head to bring your armpit and hip toward each other. Your head can stay down and your arm can stay long if it is not comfortable for you to bring an arm over your head. And slowly come down and relax. Good. Okay. Let your arm drape along your side. We're going to work with the lower body pattern in the leg. And you're going to gently straighten your top leg as if you were standing on it. So your top leg as if it's coming right out of your pelvis. And gently rotate your leg external and internal, or internal and external. You're balancing on your greater trochanter facing the floor, the part of your side of your pelvis and thigh that stays on the floor, the bone. And then let that leg relax. And then you're going to do it again. You're going to go into what I call standing leg position. Straighten your leg as if it's coming right under your pelvis. And once again, rotate your leg in each direction. And let that leg relax. And you can bend your knee on your knee. Good. Okay. Straighten your top arm. Straighten your top leg. You're balancing on the side of the pelvis on the floor. Your arm is on your side, not over your head. You're straightening, your arm is draping on the side of your body. There you go, side of your body. Okay, now you're going to lift your leg into standing position. Rotate your arm and your leg inward. Rotate your arm and your leg inward. Balance on the bottom pelvis, side of the pelvis. Rotate your arm and your leg outward and relax. And again, stack your knees and relax. There's a whole lot of different patterning we can do in this side position, but those are the ones we're going to do today. Turn over onto your other side. And we're going to do one regular lateral flexion where your knees are bent about as high as your hips and your ankles are under your knees, so you can almost see your toes. If it's comfortable, bring your arm over your head to help lift your head. But if that's not comfortable, just drape your arm long. And keeping your knees touching, bring your top foot up to internally rotate your thigh, to hike your hip, lift your head. Let your hand help lift your head. Bring your armpit and hip closer together, your ribs squeeze. And slowly come down and relax. And again, your arm can be over your head or straight, draped on your side. Straighten your top leg. And this time, lift your top straight leg toward the ceiling and hike your hip and raise your head and bring your hip and armpit toward each other. So you're still doing hip hiking, side bending of your top side. Slowly release and relax and let your leg relax. We're going to do that one more time, but your leg can relax in between. If you had your arm over your head, but you just want to try your arm long and draped as just a variation, that's another nice variation to do. You're going to straighten your top leg. You're going to abduct and lift it and hike your hip. Your armpit comes down, so your arm, you're either lifting your head with your hand or your head can stay down or lift, and your armpit is coming towards your hip. And slowly come down and relax. And now bring your arm, if your arm is not draped on the side of your hip, bring it down on the side of your hip. And you're going to bring your top leg into what I call standing leg. You're going to straighten and lift your leg enough that it's as if your leg is just coming under you as if you were standing, and rotate your leg in both directions. It doesn't matter if you rotate it inward or outward, if you can, inward or outward, and let it relax. And now, let's do that one more time. You can't, if it's too hard to straighten your leg, you can do this with your knees bent, but it's a challenging move. And we walk with our legs in this position, and it's nice to practice a little bit where you straighten your leg, bring it into standing position, and practice internally and externally rotating your leg. Both of those internal and external functions are part of walking, but please rest or back off if anything is not comfortable. And then relax. You are balancing on the side of your pelvis that's facing the floor. If you know the bony landmark called the greater trochanter, you're balancing basically on your greater trochanter. Okay, now, your arm is long, draped on your side, and we're going to work our arm and our leg together in doing the rotation to the same direction. So lift your leg in standing position, and you're going to internally rotate both your leg and your arm, still maintaining your balance on the pelvis toward the floor, and then you're going to externally rotate your arm and your leg just one time, and rest. And let your knees bend. In a future class, we're going to explore a number of different patterns of side bending and rotation from the side. That's what we're going to do today from our side. So turn back over onto your back. We won't do any belly work today because of time. And let yourself rest and notice the sensations from the movements you've been doing. And then once again, bend each knee. I like to do it one at a time. And we're going to end like we began, with just arch and flatten. So you're going to just luxuriously let yourself inhale, roll towards your tailbone, let your waistline lift a little bit. Exhale, flatten, contracting your belly, pubic bone and chest towards each other. And as you slowly and luxuriously do your arch and flatten, let your head and neck relax and let them move. Let the wave of the extension and flexion travel all the way through your spine and body up into your head and neck. Some people even like to rotate their arms. For example, on the inhale and arch, you might want to roll your arms and shoulders a little bit outward. And then as you release and come into transition, into your flatten, you can roll your arms and shoulders inward. You don't have to, it's just you can incorporate more of your body if you want to. And you're going to complete the one you're in the midst of on a flatten so your back is long, and then rest in a position of comfort, either legs long or bent. I'm going to talk just a little bit as you relax, and then we are going to take a minute or two, to do a little bit of walking. So today we worked with an introduction to a greater understanding of some movement patterns. We basically focused on upper body rotation, both to the right and the left, and noticed how important the rib cage was in positioning the rotation of the upper body in rotation. And hopefully I called your awareness to how important the rib cage really is in that upper body rotational pattern. Most of us have a bias. Most of us, it's easier to rotate in one direction or the other. And if we've done a lot of work with the head and neck and with the shoulders, and we can't seem to get that rotation out of us, it's probably because you haven't yet really worked deeply with the rotation in the rib cage. We noticed, hopefully, especially on some of the moves, how important the somatic center is to negotiating all upper and lower body movements in all three dimensions of space: forward, backward, side to side, and rotation or turning. And then we worked with some common lower body rotational patterns with our knees bent, but also with our legs straight, working more with the rotation in the legs and into the feet. I will be putting this class on my website, on YouTube. The soundtrack will go on SoundCloud so that you can redo this class or any parts of this class that you may want to. Let's do one last part, and that is, if you still have a little bit of oomph left in you, gently roll to one side and slowly come to sitting, to standing, and we'll do just a little bit of standing and walking. And some people, when they stand, your pattern, you've changed the feedback because you've released probably have released a number of muscles. And sometimes it's almost a little hard to start standing and walking because you're kind of have to find yourself again. Some people like to stand for a few seconds and feel their feet and feel their vertical height. And I like to do that. Just take a moment to try to find yourself in standing. Feel the bottoms of your feet on the floor. Notice your vertical height. Notice your upper body, your somatic center, and your lower body. And then begin what I call the la-di-da walk. You're just walking around. You don't have to stay in the camera. You can just walk around a little bit, and the walking helps you to integrate the movements you've been doing. Let me call just a couple of things to your attention. See if you can notice your rib cage rotating from side to side. So if your right arm is going forward, your rib cage is rotating left, and your left arm is rotating back. If your left arm is rotating forward, your rib cage is rotating right, and your right arm is rotating back. And in normal adult walking, it's contralateral. So the rib cage is rotating in one direction and your pelvis is rotating in the opposite direction. If your right leg is stepping forward, your pelvis is rotating left and your left leg is behind you. If your left leg is stepping forward, your pelvis is rotating right and your right leg is behind you. You're trying to understand that your rib cage and pelvis are rotating in opposite directions. Your somatic center is negotiating that coordination, and your arms and legs are following the rotation in your rib cage and pelvis. We will, in another class, spend a little bit more time with this patterning of rotation in walking. It's very valuable to have worked your rib cage and your pelvis. This is going to end today's class. You're welcome to stay on and chat a little bit. You're welcome to sign off. But this officially ends today's class.